Alright, Bubbles, for desktop size here we got 24 inches by about 14, let's give it 15 inches. And then my mobile phone is 6.5 by 3. For the media queries, so I can make the site look good on desktop and mobile. What is up, everyone, and welcome to Hello World Episode 2, CSS Media Queries. In each episode, we are going to be coding and implementing a new feature in our Hello World website. So if there's a feature you would like to see coded and implemented, let me know in the comments down below. Now, let's get into the episode. In our last episode, we coded up a website that looked like this. We got a picture of our world, we got a nice background, and we have a button. However, if we inspect the page, F12, and we click on the little mobile icon on the right, you'll see that it's not a very mobile-friendly web page. We got a side scroller, the world's too big, the section and button are too big. So by the end of this video, when we do have our media queries set up, we're going to be able to inspect the page by pressing F12, click on our mobile emulator icon on the right, and if we make our emulator bigger or smaller, the page is responsive, and that's because of our media queries. Let's get into the code. We'll begin over in our Hello World project. We're going to open that up. We set this up in the last video, so if you missed that, go check that video out, episode 1. Now, over in our views, templates, default, HTML, this is the global template, so we're loading our page-specific HTML head and body, and the rest of it is included on every page. We want to add a meta tag here for when we make our site responsive, and we're going to add that right under our title, and we're going to name this the viewport. And this meta tag is just saying that the viewport, we're going to make the width the device width. We're not going to allow the user to pinch and zoom in on our website because it's already going to look good on mobile, and we're going to set the scale, minimum and maximum to 1. And now we're going to go ahead and define our media queries. We're going to begin over in our views folder, the home HTML body. Then we have our view specific CSS to the home page, which is CSS home styles.css. We're also going to open up our CSS templates default styles CSS, which is template specific styles included across the whole site. And we'll start in our home styles.css file. Here's what we set up in the first video. So all of this is good for desktop view on a nice big screen, but if we want a smaller screen, when the screen is say less than 1200 pixels, we have to create a media query for that. So we're going to say media only screen, and here's where we specify the dimensions. We want mobile to take over anything less than 1200 pixels. And we're going to say max width 1200 pixels. When the screen is 1200 pixels or less, do any styles that we place inside of here. For example, our main container right here. Over in our HTML body, our main container is the whole div. It contains the image and the button. On desktop, it's fine to give it a width of 400 pixels and center it. But when we're on mobile, 400 pixels are just way too wide. So what do we want to do? We want to make the main container 100% of the screen. That way it'll adjust no matter what the screen size is. To do that, we're going to copy our main container class, paste it down here, and all we're going to do is give it a width of 100%. Now, when our screen size gets below 1200 pixels, the width will be 100%. It will no longer be with 400 pixels because this is the styles that will be applied to that class. And we're going to want to do the same thing for our night ID. Our night ID is the width of our image right here, the Earth. So instead of having that as 400 pixels, we want to set that to width of 100%. Now if we refresh our page, everything fits nicely. And if we drag this around and play around with the size of it, you'll see that everything adjusts nicely to 100% of the screen. Press F12 and click our little emulator button to get out of the emulator. You'll see that our Earth has now been centered and is set to a width of 400 pixels. You don't want it to be 100% when you're on desktop view, obviously. And so that was our homepage specific styles. Now let's go over and do the same thing for our template styles.css file. We're going to add a media query in here, which is going to be the same media query. Anything less than 1200 pixels, and this will contain global things. You see here we have our body, we have our section container, we have our default button styles, things that get reused and reused on multiple pages and are not just specific to the home page. We're going to go ahead and we're going to create ourselves an H1 tag here. Now, since we're here outside of our media query, this will always be applied, so this will be our desktop style. We're going to give it a margin of 0 pixels and a font size of 28 pixels. Font size of 28 pixels on mobile might be a little too big for our H1 tag, so we're going to make that 24 pixels in our media query. However, we're going to leave the margin 0 up here because we still want margin of 0 on mobile and desktop. No matter where H1 is, we want it margin of 0. We're going to copy our H1, place it in here, get rid of the margin 0 because that's already being applied up top, and we're going to go font size of 24. And that's another important thing to know. This margin will still be applied up here, but the media query font size will override this font size of 28 pixels. If you wanted to override the margin, you'd have to specify the margin down here as well in the H1 tag. So that's why we kind of define things that are global up here. We leave them the same, and we only change things in the media query that we want to make different from the desktop version. We have our H1 tag. Now we have to use our H1 tag. So we're going to go over to our HTML body, and in our section container, we're just going to give an H1 tag here, We'll call it Earth. Now let's check out our page. Let's first check out the desktop version. Then there's our Earth H1. So let's go ahead and inspect this here. And you see here's our H1 that we defined as our desktop version. Margin 0, font size 28 pixels. You click on our little emulator over here for responsive design mode. You'll see our Earth is still there, but now the font size of 24 pixels has taken over and overridden our 28 pixels. And our margin 0 pixels is still there because we did not override that in our media query. So here's our media query H1, and here is our desktop H1. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to place a color on our body. We're going to have our body a text color that is a little lighter and not black. Refresh our page, and now our Earth H1 tag looks a little better. And that is a simple, quick overview of media queries. We specified our media query to apply styles based on the size of the screen. If it's less than 1200 pixels, apply these styles. If it's greater than 1200 pixels, then we will just use the default styles that are outside of the media query. And remember, if you do not specify the desktop style you want to override specifically in your media query, the desktop style will still be loaded. And that is going to wrap up Hello World Episode 2, CSS Media Queries. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. Hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and let me know what you want to see coded up next. I'll catch you later.